Hi everyone, it's Denise with Wondubar Crafts. I'm here today to do a little sewing project. I have been making these homemade masks for my son. For those of you who subscribe to my channel probably already know my son works in, he has a job delivering food, does food delivery, and they have run out of masks. So they're being asked to reuse the same mask, and he doesn't like it. I don't like it. So I've made him up a bunch of these. I thought I would do a video. I know there's tons of videos out there. But I thought also I'd try and give you guys some maybe helpful tips if you don't have all the materials that it calls for, what you can kind of use to replace some of the stuff. This particular mask has a pocket in here for a filter, and it has a nose strip in there so that you can pinch it around your nose. Also, you can make them, I'll give you the measurements for a child size. I would say this more like for a toddler. And if you need to make it bigger for someone who's got a little bit bigger face or whatever, you can just add 2 inches, 1 to 2 inches all the way around on your measurements for everything for it. So welcome anyone new that's joining in to check this out to see how this is made. Welcome back to all my normal viewers. I know this is not the normal craft because I do junk journals and we do a lot of those kind of crafting and mixed media, but this is a media, so we're going to do a sewing project today. So what you're going to need is a piece of fabric that is cut for an adult size, 15 by 7.5. Okay, what I did was I used the salvage edge and put it up against my cutting board, and then a fat quarter will give you 3 pieces of this, or just about 3. It'll give you at least 2 adult and 1 child size. And then I folded it and then I cut it so against the salvage. So your salvage edge to the middle should be about 22 to 22.5 inches, and then your other end will be 18. So, all right. So that is what I did, was cut that. Now, if you're going to do a child size for a child, cut it 13 by 5.5. So essentially, what you're doing is you're going to drop for a child size down 2 inches on everything, with the exception of your bias tape. Okay, and if you need it larger, like for my sons, I have to put, everything else is the same, but I had to put a little longer piece of elastic because apparently you've got a big head. I cut a piece that was 2 inches longer just so that it still kept snug around his ear, but he's got a big old beard, so I'm sure that's probably inhibiting and why he's not being able to fit it right. So anyway, so you need that piece of fabric. You're going to need something to mark with. It can be a pencil or it can be a marking, fabric marking pen. I have the disappearing and the mark be gone style. You'll need a twist tie. Comes off your bread, you know. Sometimes if you buy the older style sandwich bags, they have the twist ties in them, or garbage bags. Sometimes they'll have a twist tie. Okay. If you don't have those twist ties, don't panic, crafters, because you probably have that wire somewhere, and it's probably right there on your ribbon. Remember the ribbon that has the wired edge? Cut a piece. This is, I think, 3.5 inches. Oh, 3 and it's a little longer than 3 and 3/4. So, you know, you could cut it 3 3/4 and should be fine. But just cut that piece. Don't take the wire out. Just cut that piece right down here, 3 3/4 long, and then you'll have a piece that you can use of that wire because it holds your ribbon, right? So if you don't have those, you can certainly use the wire off your ribbon. All right, and then you're going to need 1/4 inch elastic. If you don't have a 1/4 inch and you have 1/2 inch, you can cut it right down the middle. You can't, I have done it with a couple of them because I ran out and then I got some more. But you can cut it down the middle. When you pull it through, though, it will fray a little bit, but it'll still do its job. It'll still work. Or you can use this kind, which we use sometimes in jewelry making or closures. You can use thicker stuff. If you're going to use a thinner elastic band here, I would suggest that you double it if it's thin. Just double it so that you have 2 pieces. Okay. You could also cut a rubber band and do it, but those tend to be quite small, so you would, I would only use that as a last resort if you don't have anything else. You're going to need some bias tape, approximately 10 to 12 inches of it. Just depends on the size of the mask that you're going to use. I get the it's the single fold. You can get the double fold as well. It works just as good. Let's see if I can find it. This one, the bias tape, the extra wide double fold. You can use that. I'm going to use the single fold. I'm just going to iron it out and then refold it where I need it. Okay. And then let's see, I might use the gray on it just so that you guys can see versus using the red. Let me see if I can find my gray here. Yeah. So we'll use a gray, the double wide on it, and what that is it's extra wide, and what they've done is they folded it in the center and then folded those down pieces, so it's a wider piece. Okay. If you don't have bias, you can cut. There are videos online on how to cut your own bias and make it out of fabric. You can do that. It's not really that hard. You'll need a safety pin. You'll need some clamps to clamp your fabric together. If you don't have clamps, old-fashioned pins work too. You're going to need a ruler and obviously a sewing machine. So anyway, with that, let me get some stuff situated and back over towards the machine, and then we'll get started. Our first step is going to be to zigzag on this. So once you've cut your piece and you're ready to go, you can pause the video, cut your piece, and meet me at the sewing machine. So I'll see you there in just a second. All right, guys. So I'm back at the machine, and what I want to do is I want to zigzag, or you can, if you have a serger, you can serge down. All you're doing is going to keep this fabric, these edges from fraying when you go to wash it or anything like that. So we're just going to do a simple zigzag stitch all the way down. I typically set mine just about on the edge. As you can see, my foot, I have it on the inner portion of the foot. You just want to try and get it as close to the edge as possible without it picking up or puckering. You can certainly do that to finish it. As you can see, it puckers it just a little bit, but it's just going to keep this so that when your cotton fabric frays, it won't come apart through your stitching. So how is everyone doing? Good, I hope. You're hanging in. So I was going to do another video, but unfortunately, I got to tell you guys a story here in a minute of what happened. So instead I've kind of been doing, I kind of got off set of trying to do these. All right, so let's move back over to the work table, and we're gonna clamp some stuff together. All right, ta-da, I'm back over here. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna half this in half, and I'm gonna put my 2 edges that I just serged or zigzagged together. And then I'm going to find my ruler, wherever Sorry, I gotta reach across here, grab it, because I left it over there. That was silly. Okay, and now what we want to do is we are going to mark 1.5 inches in, and this is going to help set where we're going to put this little nose piece here, the twist tie. So 1.5 inches in from either side, and just mark it. All right, and then we're going to clamp or pin it, whichever you need. I like these little clamps. I did get some of these at Hobby Lobby, and then I bought some more through more Fabriques on her through her Etsy. She had some in her shop, so I love these little clamps. They're awesome. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to sew from the edge to that mark, and then from that mark out to the edge. So let's go head back over to the machine. Whew. See, normally I have everything over on my other side over there, and I can just, I don't have to keep getting up and move around. So, all right. So I'm going to use a straight stitch on here, and then I'm not going to use a backing stitch off this edge, but I am going to do a backup stitch when I get to my mark. Okay, and then I'm going to come down here where my mark is. And I'm sewing about, it's about 1/2 inch. It's about 1/2 inch from the edge. Okay, my seam allowance. So I'm from my mark, and I'm going to do my back stitch. And just come all the way out. And then I'm just going to clip my little strings here. That way nothing hangs out and gets all in my way. Yeah, I was going to do a video on using a bag for a book cover, as you know, my cover for my book. And yeah, my son, it's funny. All right, let's move back over. All right, we're back over here. Yeah, I had bought, I had went to the Dollar Tree, and, oh, I don't know, probably a little over a month ago. And I bought like this package of, like a 3-pack of little gift bags. And I thought, oh, you know, that'll be perfect to make those little book covers. And I brought them home, and I set them, I know I set them downstairs, and I'm like looking all over the place to try and do this video the other day. My son comes up, he's like, what are you looking for? You're like stomping all over. Everything okay? And I'm like, yeah, I can't find those little gift bag things that I got from the Dollar Tree. And he goes, oh, those were gift bags? And I said, they were? What do you mean by they were? He goes, oh, I used them. I thought they were like lunch bags. So he took them to work, put his lunch in them, and threw them away. So then, of course, I'm searching all over the place for another bag to try and do this project. I did find one, so I'll try and do that probably after I get a couple more of these done. All right, so we've sewn our seam together. All right, so we're going to put that right kind of in the middle, and then we're just going to run our finger down here to kind of open the seam. So we want our seam open. All right, and then you are going to need an iron. So let's flatten that seam so that our seam is open. All right, and then we're going to take it back. We're going to turn it inside out, and then we're going to take it back over to the sewing machine, and we're going to do a top stitch. And I'm going to show you how to do this, because you're going to be like, wait a minute, I'm going to sew this together. No, you're not. I'm going to show you. Trust me. Okay, back over. Boy, I'm getting my exercise today, I tell you. All right, so what I want to do is I'm going to kind of tuck this, kind of pull it in a little bit so that I've got I don't know, let me take my foot off and show you. This is the foot I normally use. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this part of my seam here to my inner portion of my foot. Okay, right here. And that is going to give me approximately 1/4 of an inch from there to the center to do my top stitch. Now, if you don't have a foot like this, just put a 1/4 inch from the seam, approximately 1/4 inch to do your top stitch. So I'm not doing any back stitching. I'm just going to do a straight stitch. And I'm just going to allow that seam to, this part of my foot to guide, as a guide for my seam. And I'm going to have to pull and act like and as I'm pulling this, I'm tucking it so that it's like I'm trying to turn it inside out again, right? And then I'm pulling it away from, so it doesn't gather up and get caught up underneath my foot. And then just take your time and slowly sew. And then if you need to lift up your foot and readjust, do it. It's okay. It's really not that difficult. Just try not to rush through this part because you are, you know, gathering up fabric and you don't want it to get caught up underneath there, and then you're sewing a big bundle together. All right, so now I'm at my end. I'm going to turn it. I'm going to lift my foot and turn it so that that side is now, the side that we just sewed is now on the inside portion of our machine, and the side we need to sew is on this side. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull all that fabric out from underneath the foot. Okay, see how it's all bunched up here? I'm going to just lift it and pull it back out of my way. So it's like starting all over again. And then just run it on the other side. Just making sure nothing gets in my way. Right. Just do a few stitches and straighten things out. All right. Let's take it out and then turn it so that the right side of the fabric is out. And then we'll head back over and do some more marking and some more sewing. So meet you back over at the table. All right, so we've sewn, we've done our top stitch. Here is the opening. That is the opening that will become our opening for our filter. All right, so now what I want to do is, if you have, just a quick tip, if you are using fabric that has a pattern on it, all right, you want to make sure that the side, when it's inside out, that this is going to be the front side of your mask. Okay, so this portion that you're working with here will be upside down. So if your pattern is supposed to be like triangles that are going up, you need to make that in the front that it's upside down. Do you see what I'm saying? So that way your pattern on the front will be the correct way, and this portion here will be upside down, and that's the portion that goes to your mouth. So nobody's gonna see that. All right, so now from our seam here, clip my little string from this seam, this center seam where the opening is, see, I'm going to mark 1/2 inch, okay, to the upper part. So if this is upside down, you want to go to the upper part. So if you lay it down so that your pattern is upside down and turn it Okay, on your, I would mark your left side. Okay, and either side. Just do a little mark. Then what we want to do is where you marked on this side and you marked on this side, just give it a pinch and drop the fabric. Pick it up and drop it, and then just lay it down. Okay, so then that way, this portion, if you, like I said, if it's patterned in a certain direction, this will be upside down. Then you're going to iron it. Just run that iron all the way up and down. So now you have a nice square. All right. Okay. So now this is where we're going to put our nose piece. But first of all, what we need to do is we're going to sew all the way around. Okay. So we need to head back over to our machine. I'm going to grab my clips and I'm going to grab my nose piece because I can do all that right in front of the camera over there. So I'm going to move back over there and I'll meet you guys there in just a second. Ta-da! Wasn't even a second, right? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a 1/4 inch seam all the way around I'm going to sew it all the way around my block here. So I am going to start with a back stitch. And then I'm just going to try and keep that 1/4 inch. Now I already know that from this edge to the center or from this edge to that center is a 1/4 inch on my foot. Yeah, boy, let me tell you guys, I had to swap my cameras around too because I don't know if you guys remember from my last video, the video kind of jumped around a little bit. And of course, this is the camera that used to be over there. For some reason, when it's zoomed out like that, it's not focusing correctly, and it's jumping all over the place. So I had to switch out my cameras. I was hoping that I wasn't going to have to buy one right now. I may have to replace this camera that's over here on the machine. I don't know why it did that though. I mean, I was online a good portion of the morning trying to figure out what's causing all that flickering. It was crazy. Back stitch. And then so I am just going to trim off some of my threads here. Goodness. Come on. Okay. And on this side. Now, this is the portion right here that we're going to stick our little nose piece. So how I do it to make sure that it's even is I just kind of eyeball it and just kind of put in a little V like that. I don't fold it in half. I just make a little V. I fold my fabric in half and then I pinch it, kind of just to give me a little guide. All right. So I know that this part right here is my halfway mark. I'm going to place this right inside that little upper flap, okay, right up here. Hopefully you guys pick this up a little bit here. All right. And then that way, where that little tie is bowed there, it should fit right in that where I hafted it right there. Right there. So that tie is up in there. And we're just going to tuck it, like I said. And then I'm going to use my clamps to just pin it down. To just keep it in place. Tucked up there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a stitch right along this, you should have a stitch line right here from where you did the top stitch. Okay, but it's not on the back side because, you know, like I said, we stitched, that's part of the seam, sorry. We're going to stitch all the way down across that to close up that opening. So no need to back stitch, just stitch right down the center. Use your center guide there, right down over the top of that other stitch, or that other seam that's already there. Okay, not back stitching, I'm just cutting it. All right, set my little threads here. All right, so now what we need to do, now my nose piece is in there, it's not coming out, it's all sewn in there, okay? And then now what we're going to do is we're going to go mark this where we need to make our pleats. And you don't have to mark it, you can pleat it yourself any way you want, and I'll show you how you can do that as well. So let's move back over. Okay, now we have a little more room over here to do this. So like I said, this is where we just sewed our little nose, our little twist tie in there. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to make sure that that twist tie is on my left, and then I'm just going to flip it over. All right, now if you want to make pleats at a different size, you can. Just make sure your nose piece is down here, and you can just quickly tuck and then tuck again and make your pleats any size you want. Me, I want them a little more organized, a little more even. So, but if you just need something quick, then you can go ahead and do that. So make sure your nose piece is to your left. Flip it over so the right side of the fabric is up. And what I did was, or what I've been doing, is I marked it where this seam is here, this edge seam, 1.5, and then at the 2. Okay, so 1.5 and 2, and then another 1.5 inches, so at 3.5, and then 4. So we start with 1.5 inches and then add 1/2 inch, okay? And then another 1.5 inches to 5.5, and then 1/2 inch to 6. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So at 1.5, and then at 2, and then add another 1.5 inches to go to 3.5, and then 1/2 inch to 4, 1.5 inches to 5.5, and then 1/2 inch to 6. Okay. And then we're going to need our iron. So then we're going to turn it so that our twist tie is down here at the bottom. And this is where we're going to need our iron, right? And then I'm going to take where that first mark is, and I'm going to fold it down so that I'm about even on both sides, right? Okay, and then I'm going to take my iron, and I'm just going to iron it. All right, and then get some more light here. Now I'm going to go down to where that 4-inch mark was, okay, and I'm going to fold it down and just kind of make sure it's even on both sides there. Doesn't have to be wicked precise. It's just going to help our pleats lay better. Okay, and iron it. Now, when I open it, the 2-inch mark here, right, which is our second mark from the bottom up, should put the top part of that, or the bottom part of that square right in that crease. Okay, so you can just literally flip it up and then just iron. All right, and then open it up. Now we're going to pinch that first mark at the 1.5 inches, on both sides, pinch it, and just pull it up. And because we've already ironed that, it should lay pretty flat. Okay. Doesn't have to be immaculately perfect, but you don't want it too crooked, you know. I mean, if you're off by 1/8 of an inch, it ain't going to make that big of a deal. You just don't want to be off by 1/2 an inch one way, and then you're kind of like a mass that's kind of wonked like that. So, all right. So then we're going to come up here to the 3.5 mark and do the same thing. Okay, pinch it, and then find where that's already ironed. And it should lay down pretty good right there. All right, and then that one will tuck right there. And there's our second pleat, and then I just iron over both pleats again. And then one last pleat. You can put more pleats in it if you want. You can set it any way you like. Okay. All right. Come on. Figures. Normally I can get these things zip, zip, zip. I think most of the time because I'm standing up when I do with the iron. Okay. So there we go. There's our 3 pleats. And then I'm just going to give it a quick iron. And I'm going to turn it inside out or back upside down, you know, flip it over. And then iron it this way as well. Okay. And then I'm going to take my clips and I'm going to clip my sides to stay in place so I can sew them down, sew my pleats down. So, 3 more clips here. Yeah, I made one off of like the first video I seen, and it was all cattywonk. I don't know why or whatever, and I found another video, and then I did some of my own little modifications as far as size goes, you know, for like the biased and stuff, so it was much easier to get done. All right, so now what we're doing now what we're ready to do is sew down our edges so that our pleats stay down. Okay, so we're going to head back over to the machine. Okay, so what we're going to do is where we sewed around the outer edge, there's about 1/4 inch there. We're going to sew right down that line to hold our pleats. So just a straight stitch all the way down. And it's okay if you don't hit the line exactly. All right, you just want to make sure you could have a good 1/4 inch seam allowance over here. All the way down. You don't need to back stitch with this one. Okay. And because that's one thing I like about this foot is I don't have to flip it over, and I'm sewing down on top of my pleats instead of turning it to try and sew upward. Sometimes that can cause bunching, and you don't want that. So you can do it. If your foot doesn't, if you don't have that kind of attachment on your machine, that's okay. You can do it, just go slow so that your pleats don't bunch up. Just take it slow and easy. Alright. Trim my little pieces of thread there, and then we're going to head back over and we're going to measure out the bias to put on the edge that holds the elastic around the ears. Okay, so what I want to do is I kind of want to make sure, I just want to trim any loose or jagged edges that have appeared after sewing, just so I have a straight edge. You don't want to take too much, just a nice little trim off. You know, you get a little bit of this fuzz on either ends, just so that it's straight, so that our bias will lay nice and flat, and it will help when we guide the elastic through the bias tape. Okay. All right. So with my nose piece and my opening to my left, all right, what I'm going to do is find my ruler, and then I'm going to use some of my bias. All right, and I am going to measure 3/4 of an inch, and then lay that right on my edge so that I've got 3/4 of an inch hanging out. So if I come over here, I'm just a smidgen more than 4 1/4. Okay. So I need at least 3/4 of an inch hanging off. So I'm a little over 1/4, 4 1/4. So I'll take it to 5 and just a little bit more. It doesn't have to be exactly, you know, you just want some of the edge, and I'll show you why, because we're going to tuck that, and it's going to make it a lot nicer. It's going to lay nicer for you to be able to feed your elastic through. Now we're going to turn it so that our nose piece here is to the right, and we're going to do the same thing on the bottom. And the reason why I measure both pieces out is, like you said, sometimes when you're laying your pleats, if you don't get it exact, you know, you might have, you might be like this one is just under, it's just under 4, but this side is just under 4 as well, but it's off by like 1/8 of an inch. If you measure your top and then measure that, your side pieces around won't be exact where you want it, and it's not going to lay as nice. So it's better just to measure your pieces so you know which one's top and which one's bottom. Okay. So I know this is my top and this is my bottom. So I'm going to set my mask off to the side. I'm going to grab my iron and I'm going to open up my bias. Okay. And if you notice, if you buy the double, this double-sided or the extra wide double fold bias, okay, it doesn't come all the way down to the fold, but you're going to open one side up and leave one of the folds down, and then you want to iron it open, but you want to leave it so that it lays nice and flat, but you can still see where the fold was. Okay, so you don't want to iron it so much that the fold is completely gone, because that fold is going to help guide you when we fold it back around. Okay, so same thing here. I'm going to open it up and leave one side folded down. And if you make your own bias, you don't have to do any of this. Just, you know, lay your bias strip down and just fold a piece of it, you know, over, so that when you sew it, it picks up it, you know, you don't have this rough edge to fray when you go to wash it. Okay, so with our nose piece and our opening to the left, okay, I'm going to take my top piece and I'm just going to measure, I'm just going to lay it and just eyeball so that it's kind of centered. See what I'm saying? And then I'm going to take that edge that's hanging off and I'm going to tuck it around. And then I'm going to clip it. All right. Same thing with this. Tuck it around. Hold it in place till we're ready to sew. on there a little bit. Try and get it to the edge as much as possible, but it's okay if a little bit hangs over. It's all right. It's not going to hurt anything. You're not going to mess anything up with it if that's what happens. You just don't want it way down here. Okay. That's kind of why I evened it up, so that it was easier to, you know, I don't have jagged edges trying to figure out. Where's it? An even point to center it to. Okay, so same thing. Tuck it around. And then now we're ready to sew the bias on. Okay, just make sure that that end, those ends are where your opening is. Okay, on the back side. So this is essentially your back side. This is the piece that goes to your mouth. So let's go back over to the machine. Okay, like I said, I'm getting my exercise today for sure. Okay, since our pleats are already sewn down, we don't need to really worry about whether or not it's gonna, what side we do this on. So I'm going to use another, just right at a 1/4 inch, and I'm going to sew it down. No need to back stitch on this. This is an inside. All this stitching is going to get tucked in when we turn our bias around. Our bias tape. Okay. And because my pleats are already sewn down, I can turn this around and use the same guide here. So about a 1/4 inch. All right, so now what we want to do is we're going to take this back over and we're going to pull this out and we're going to flip it around and iron it down to make another stitch. So let's head back over to the table. All right, so now what we want to do is take our bias and flip it around. Okay, flip it out. And just kind of finger press it a little bit for now, because we're going to take our iron and we will pull that out a little bit and iron it down so it lays flat, or lays a little smoother, I should say, not flat, because you're not going to get that perfectly flat. Okay. All right. So it appears this edge did not get sewn all the way to the end. So I'm going to take this real quick back over to my machine. I'm not going to show you, but that's why you need to make sure it goes all the way to the end, okay? Because otherwise it's going to flip out on you when you go to turn it around. So hold on. Okay, I took my stitch all the way to the end and then pulling it out and over. Okay. Now, what I want to do is take my iron and I'm just going to try and smooth out the seam as much as possible so that my bias has a full range to be able to wrap around. And I'm going to iron down my little flaps. Typically what I do with my flaps is instead of making them straight, I kind of tuck them in just a little bit so that they're not, so they're more at an angle. Right. Same thing with this side. Okay, so those are ironed down. Now what we're going to do is, this is our right side. This is the outside portion. Where that seam was, we're going to fold it down and then fold it over. All right. And then you want to take a clamp or a pin and pin it in place, because this is the piece that our elastic's going to go through. All right. Same thing with this side. Fold it down to the fold and then fold it up. And pin it. And then we're going to take it down to the machine and we're going to sew about 1/4 of an inch right down off the edge of the bias on this side, on the inner side. Okay, so that gives us that amount, a 1/4 inch in here to be able to pull our elastic through. So go back over to the machine. We're getting there, aren't we? We sure are. Almost done. Okay, so a 1/4 inch. And I do want a back stitch on this. We're almost done, yay! Of course, I get them done, and I do mine in kind of like an assembly line, so I do about 4 at a time. So, all right, back stitch. Thread is getting close to the end, so it gets to a point where it wants to pull on the tension a little bit. Oop. All right, clip our little strings here. I think I need to get another little light over here by my sewing machine so it's a little brighter over here, I think. Okay, so this is the part that goes to our face, okay, and we wrap the bias around. Now what we're going to do is measure and pull our elastic through here, sew it, and then it's done. So let's head back over to the work table. All right, so, gosh, I didn't notice that. It almost looks like it's blue, but it's actually gray. I don't know if you guys can see. It's actually gray, not blue. Of course, it's pretty dim outside today, so I don't have that extra light in my room. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to feed our elastic through. And like I said before, the mask here fits my son's face, but the problem is he's got a big head. So the measurement between his cheeks to his ears is longer than mine. So I have to add an extra inch for him. For me, and this is the measurements I took off the internet. They work fine for average. So if you have someone with a very large head, add an inch or 1.5 inches to it. But what I'm going to do is measure a piece that's 9 3/4. All right, 9 3/4. And you can pre-measure this out and have it already cut and ready to go. What I would do is, if you're going to make this for a male or someone with a bigger head, test it with a normal size one, and then you'll know to make theirs a little longer. Okay. So we need our safety pin. And what we're going to do is grab just the end of the elastic with our mask, the outside. Remember the face mask portion, the opening goes to the inside. This is the outside. I'm just going to run my safety pin through there, through that hole, to feed that elastic through there. Now, if you're lucky, it'll come right through like that. That's why when I wrap it, I put those little angles on there, because it helps it open, it helps it feed the elastic through with this. Sometimes it'll get hung up, and I'll show you what to do if that happens. Now, so same thing here. Now this one went right through. Now let's say it doesn't go through, but you catch it on the other side of this folded in fabric. Either take another safety pin or take something like the end of a pen or something like that isn't going to mark the material, and push it through. And then take your safety pin head and find the end of either the pen or the other safety pin, and then just push it with the safety pin through, because that is going to open that fabric back up, and push it right through, and your pin will come right through. Okay. All you're doing is, because sometimes, remember when we folded that over, there's a little lip back here. Sometimes your safety pin head will get caught in there. Just back it out a little bit and stick like I said, another larger safety pin in there, or something, or a pen. This happens to be the brush for my machine. I just poke it in there, and then I push that safety pin head up against it, and as I'm backing it out, it'll follow that opening perfect. Now, what happens if you don't have elastic? You can use more bias and make it longer, make a longer strip, or you can use ribbon and sew that on there, and so it's long enough, but you're going to need to measure how far you're going to need it to tie around your neck and over your head. If you don't have anything like that, but you have elastic, but you don't have bias, you can take the edge of this where it's pleated and poke holes with your crocodile or with a hole punch. Just make sure you don't do it on the very edge so it doesn't fray out. Poke it in there, and then take your elastic, tie a knot there if you don't have bias to do that, or if you don't think that you're going to be capable of doing it, just poke 4 holes and then tie a knot so that your elastic comes here, loop it through, tie a knot, and you'll have your end piece. All right, so for this, now you can clamp or you can use your safety pin. I prefer just to use a straight pin for it because it just makes it easier for me, and it holds the elastic in place. Some places are telling you to make a longer piece and then tie a knot and then fold it through, but when you go to wash it, the knot's going to come out in the wash, and then you're going to be digging for your piece of elastic. So for me, I think it's better to sew it. So I give about an inch overlap, and then I just pin it. About an inch, and then get it through without poking yourself. Yeah. All right, and then we're going to take it over the machine. We're going to zigzag stitch that and then feed it back through, and then our mask is done. So let's head back over to the machine for one last time. All right, so I've set my machine to do a zigzag stitch. All right, and then what I'm going to do is lay this under to see how the pin is keeping it in place. I'm not going to sew over my pin. It's just here to keep that small fiddly you know, elastic where I need it. All right, and I'm just going to pull my pin out a little bit, and then I'm going to start my stitch, and then I'm going to pull it out a little bit, and then I'm going to zigzag stitch a bit, pull it out a little more. Now it should be good to go to pull my pin all the way out, and then I'm going to give it just a quick back stitch, and I'm done with that side. Alright, I'm going to trim some of these little extra pieces of thread, and then I'm just going to pull that right through my bias. Well, there we go. And then I'm just going to feed it towards right about in the center, and then that side's done. Same thing with this one. I'm going to feed this over here. The straight pin just helps me keep it centered in place where I need it. Come on. Don't be stinking butt. Oh goodness. Well, there you go. So now you get to see what happens if this happens. I'm just going to take the thread out. It wants to be a stinker. Don't you know it, right at the end. And it happens. No big deal. Let me stick the pin here. All right. I think my pin was a little crooked. All right. For some reason it's not wanting to grab on the feet. I think that's the problem. There it goes. Back stitch a little bit. And ta-da! Slip off my extra threads. All right. And then just pull it through. So that that's about center. Okay. And then I'm going to take it back over and show you guys what it looks like. Okay. So there's our mask, right? Goes around our ears. This is the opening. Here's our nose piece. Here's our opening. This is where you would feed your filter. And this goes around there. Just like that. You got a little nose piece there. Crimp it down there. So, like I said, that's what I've been busy doing. I'll probably be doing this over the next day or two to get a few more made up for my son. He has them for work. If you guys know of any place that's looking for donations of these, let me know. I'm happy to do additional ones because I do know some states are asking people to make them if they can to donate, because they'll take them and wash them, sterilize them, and put their own filters and stuff in them at some places. So, but, or if you guys are interested in making some up for donation, there you go. I hope you guys will give it a try, at least if you don't have face masks. It's a little something. I know it's not a surgical mask, but it should help protect. If you're just popping out, like I had to go pop out to the post office today, you know, it just gave me some added protection, a little peace of mind, especially if you're social distancing and you do need to get a little close to somebody, you know, for a split second or two. Hopefully this will help protect. Anyways, guys, hopefully, I'll find, I've been digging through to try and find another one of my gift bags. I know I've got them somewhere. I think they're out in like another tub out in my garage that I keep like all my holiday stuff in. And I think I've got some gift bags in there. I might do a gift bag journal cover kind of thing next. But I just want to show you guys what I was up to. I hope this helps. Any of you that are, you know, normally subscribe to my channel and watch, hopefully, you know, you'll branch out a little bit and attempt to do something. Even if you're just bored, want something to do. It'll be something, right? And I will be back to do anything, you know, some other back to journaling, crafting kind of thing. And for any of you that aren't subscribed, I'd love to have you as part of the Wondubar Crafts family. Or if you're just hanging out or just looking for another pattern to do face masks yourself, I hope you enjoyed. Hope you were somewhat entertained. And hopefully you'll come back and watch some more videos. So until next time, guys, craft on. Please be safe out there. Plenty of hug, love, and blessings. Mwah. Love you guys. Bye.